Dear learners, today in this session we will discuss sensory evaluation of foods. It is a scientific discipline and it is used to evoke, measure, analyze and interpret the reactions to those characteristics of the food material as they are perceived by the senses. Senses means human senses. And human senses could be what? Human senses could be, say for example, here in this figure you are able to see the eye, touch, ear, nose. When you actually bite, chew, so whatever is within the mouth and the tongue, that region. Evaluate the food while we are eating the food, while we are taking the food, while we are receiving the food. So this evaluation in a scientific and in an ordered manner. So that will be called the sensory evaluation. As we have understood that in this particular method, we are going to have the human as particularly as an instrument or a replacement of instrument. Otherwise, in the labs, we measure the quality of the food with the instrument. Now, human itself is judging the food for certain quality parameters. What are those parameters? We are coming to those. And those parameters are known as or called as sensory attributes. In this attribute, first we will list appearance. Appearance means how does a food look like. It could be including shape, size, color. Because say for example, you are going to buy apple. And apple has the shade of green and red both. So what would be your preference? Having a apple round throughout the surface, or is having some faded area, some green area? Certainly your preference will be for a apple which is matured and fully ripened. So you'll normally like a red apple. So that is what, so it is the first, you can say, interaction with of human with the food material. So it creates the first impression, and even a buying decision sometimes depend on the appearance. So it gives or it creates the visual appeal for the consumers. So attractiveness of the product, it is its opacity, its volume. Its volume is, if you are buying a banana in terms of size, you will prefer to have a more voluminous banana as compared to the smaller banana if they are sold in number, not in kgs. So that's that kind of judgment, that kind of evaluations, all where the human senses are involved. In very layman's language, they can be treated as the evaluation, sensory evaluation. So we are now listing the attributes. So appearance is one of the attributes. Next, odor. Odor is how does a food smell like. It could be pleasant. Sometimes some of the food material may not be, or some of the smells may not be acceptable, particularly in the fermented foods. And if we take the human senses and particularly the sense organ nose for this purpose, it is highly reliable. It might not be reliable in terms of the quantifying, but mixing the different smell notes and processing it in the human brain, and then judging what is the quality indicator or to what extent the food can be given a quality grade for especially odor. So that can be very well done. So that's how human sense can be relied for this purpose. Taste, certainly there is hardly any alternate which can perceive taste. Though there are electronic tongues and instruments are being made, but they cannot really replace the human sense or the human subjects for that purpose. We have been probably studying and judging everyday sweet, sour, salty or bitter taste. But beyond these four tastes, there is one more taste which is named, and that is umami taste. Umami taste is something for the foods which are savory or the meaty kind of taste. There are certain ingredients which are used for giving this umami taste to the food, like MSG, monosodium glutamate, which you would have heard. And taste buds, there is a distribution of the sections on the tongue where the food is perceived. So a sensory evaluator should know what kind of food it is and where do I actually put on my tongue and to judge it better and quickly. For the taste purpose, there are terms which are used if there is an individual who is being used as a assessor or the sensory evaluator or a panelist needs what is the sensitivity of that individual for each stimulant. These attributes are also called stimulant because they are causing stimulation on the sense. That's how they are called the stimulant also. So what is the sensitivity of an individual? Can there be a person who could be a super taster? Or can there be a person who can detect even a minute amount of the pinch of the salt in water? So for that purpose, the individual sensitivity is also measured before selecting is as a panelist. And for that, different levels are assessed. To what extent, say for example, salt or sugar solutions which are used can be detected by that individual in water, and where it can recognize it, yeah, it is something is there versus it is sugar, it is salt. And what is the differential threshold? You can differentiate the some small quantities of the salt into different solution. Yes, there are two different solutions, two different concentration of salt. And what is the terminal threshold where beyond that the differentiation does not really come? These parameters give the sensitivity of the taster who is tasting. So out of these different attributes, when we club particularly taste and odor, that is very important to understand. It is named as a complex mixture of taste and odor. It's named as the flavor. And here what happens actually, the olfactory region versus the gustation region. So there is you will see then when you chew something and the part of the vaporization it goes to the olfactory region and overall perception of the food is judged. That's how the flavor is the mixture of it, and it can also be counted as one of the attributes. In sensory evaluation, what is important to understand that how do we sensory has a different set of vocabulary. And texture is one of such attributes which needs a thorough understanding of sensory vocabulary. What is texture? Say, for example, in cloth, we immediately want to judge or buy a cloth, whether it is soft or it is a matte finish, it is a smooth finish. So that's surface finish. So it's a surface texture. In foods, how do we look for it? We put it on the tongue, we judge it. We'll see that how do we do it. So it's a tactile or a feel sensation which is detected in the mouth. That is what we are referring for the sensory evaluation. And within the kinesthetics means you put it under jaw and put certain pressure, break it. How does the food respond? So it is crispy, soggy. A biscuit has taken up the moisture. It has become the soggy. You put under, for example, within the mouth and you put a first bite on it. So it's just without crackle sound, it is broken. So that's acceptance would be poor for it. In addition to that, you would be probably little surprised to see that even sight and hearing are aid for the texture perception. How the sight and hearing are, say for example, tapping watermelon. It's a sound which an individual want to perceive that whether it is ready for harvest, ready for consumption or not. And in case of the sight, yes, visually we can also see that some of the foods at a certain maturity level develop certain strips. So it means the maturity is attained or not. The vocabulary which I was referring to, say for example, texture, mechanical property, example, you should, the difference or you should take detailed study on in terms of the firm, hard, soft, tough. Otherwise, they appears to be quite closer word. I have tried to differentiate a few of them like hard. If you take a rusk versus a biscuit, which is harder. So rusk is the hard one. Muruku is a snack, which is a South Indian snack. Cake, dokla, they are quite soft kind of food. If we take kalakan kind of product or the milk cake kind of product, sticky, there could be some caramels, they are more chewy kind of product. And within the texture, when texture is perceived, a mouthfeel is developed. And on the basis of the mouthfeel, also texture is defined. Say, for example, a product like roasted chana, bhuna chana, they can develop, they can make to you feel your mouth just dry. So the mouthfeel is of dry. While you take the dokla, you feel it, a mouth is full of water, means there's water, so it's a moist feel. In some of the, you can say, sweets, where too much of the ghee is there or the butter oil is there, then they can give a feel of greasy product. There could be astringency in terms of, say, for example, marmalade, you have added orange peels. So they may cause mouthfeel of that astringency. After understanding the attributes, we'll look into the steps that what is actually the sensory evaluation is and how do we actually go for the sensory analysis. Here for this process, important to have that proper selection of the panelist, maintaining a suitable environment conditions. Say, for example, if you are right in kitchen and you want to taste it, it can have influence of different other flavors. So it should be a place which should, an environment especially designated for sensory test. Not influenced by the environment, light, or reflections, or so means anything which can influence the mood. Selection of proper method or the statistical techniques are equally important. So interpretation, as it was the part of the definition in the beginning, I just read the definition where I mentioned the interpretation. So interpretation is done through the statistical technique. So now going for a selection of panelists. So what should be the parameter for it? What should be the qualification of a panelist? Number one should be interested in it and should be motivated of having these sessions and should be able to make himself, herself available for such sessions of testing. What is the attitude? What is the knowledge and aptitude? Knowledge and aptitude, sometimes depending on your location, you might, means one may have a limit. May not be every recipe on the globe, one is not perfect. So means until unless the knowledge of that recipe, what is to be tested, what it actually look like, the authenticity would not be able to, the individual might not be able to judge if he is not having the right knowledge and aptitude. What is health, what age, because senses also goes down with certain health conditions. If you have a running nose or cold, your nasal section will not work well. And age also makes it dull. Ability to communicate, personality means the vocabulary of the sensory vocabulary or the rightly putting the perception of the food. Here, it is important to see that a panelist is not just by birth a panelist, but there could be a super taster, super sensitivity could be there. So here we divide the panel accordingly that there could be a panel who is well trained, exposed, understand very well with the well versed with the vocabulary. They are the trained panelist. There are untrained panelists, other extreme, where there could be average consumer. There could be semi-trained panelist, somebody who has over the time earned certain knowledge on the sensory evaluation. But what is the use of studying this? Or why do we differentiate these panelists? We differentiate because we actually apply sensory evaluation during the new product development or certain ingredient replacement. There are different applications related to it. If we are putting a trained panel, they might have some limitations using trained panels, but trained panels would be very small size of panelists. Some 5 to 10 number of panelists might also be sufficient for doing evaluations. While if you are going for untrained consumer, you should have at least 100 members or more. So with cost, effect, time. So considering all those, we select the type of panel. And where do we actually perform this sensory evaluation? The facilities, which are, I mentioned that what should be the environment, what should be the color of wall, white or off-white color, lighting, means it should not giving a misperception of the color. The hue or chroma of the product is not changed with the influence of light. So there are certain neutral lights available. So they are used. Good ventilation, one should not be feeling suffocating. Normal, convenient temperature should be there. Somebody just sweating and tasting will not really work. And sample should be prepared properly while presenting. They should be coded. They should be, you can say that served with the same size, equivalent shelf life, time, since cooking preparation. So that all should be taken care while presenting anything for sensory evaluation. Now coming to what do we actually do in sensory evaluation? Prominently, there are three important kind of test or the analysis. That discrimination. We want to differentiate. We have changed the recipe. We want to judge the effect. So whether two products are similar or different, even we have changed the recipe. So discrimination. Some descriptive analysis of, say for example, there are different attributes. What is the description of each attribute? Sometimes we just want to judge the liking, disliking. So that's an affective domain mapping of an individual or a consumer. So they would be called as affective or hedonic kind of test. I'm giving here some example of discriminating test. So here the basic question what is to be solved is, are the two products different? And it can be done in different ways. Like if you just pick the third one, paired comparison. This is the simplest test. There are two products. You can choose among two samples that whether they are same or different. It could be presented slightly different manner if that is put in the triangle test or the duotrio test. So choose among three samples, two such samples are similar. So odd one has to be put out. And duotrio, here to choose among two samples, there is one sample marked as a reference sample, one which is similar to the reference sample. So this is how do you present to ask and to judge. Within the discrimination, sometimes we take one attribute or the more attribute, or then on that we can say that there are different food items. There could be an order of preference. So that would be the putting it into the ranking. And that ranking even, there could be in form of hedonic rating scale, there could be the external scaling rating. There are different ways of doing it. And sometimes within this ranking, we've also fixed a control. And with reference to the control, we can give the ranking. Now, I mentioned that sometimes descriptive analysis is also done. And in descriptive analysis, what is this? This is mainly for trained panelists, and whereby we want to assess different, you can say the attributes. The attributes listed here are appearance, and within and the color, you say here, and the aroma. Within that, you say appearance. Appearance, what do we see? We see the color, turbidity, viscosity, how thick, how thin. So each, and there is a line scale is being used. This is a sample ballot which is shown here. And what is the extent of this, and where do you want to place actually the ranking of this particular product? So this is a description giving on the different attributes. And in affective domain, I mentioned that liking and disliking of the products, and if it is for the consumer level, it can go for 100 of panelists to be included for it. However, getting a representative sample is actually the issue is. So means what is the population, total population versus getting a representative sample. That's how people sometimes rely more because some modifications are to be done. Then you rely more on the trained or semi-trained panel rather than going for a consumer testing. But how do we put this affective testing in effect? For example, hedonic scale. This is an example of 9-point hedonic scale where an individual can map or can indicate the liking or disliking from liked extremely and other extreme is dislike extremely. Between this, where the product is lying. Accordingly, he can just put a number or the score 1 to 9. So if the score is given 7, it means the individual would have considered that product as a moderately disliked, right? We can reverse it also, though it is in serial. But if we take the liking, normally what do? We do not, they are put here 1 to 9 in serial. But while scoring it, liked extremely is given the 0.9 and dislike extremely is given 0.1. That is how we put. This can be converted into a 5-point scale also. After having this exposure, I would like to have a question. My question is that if you are simply judging two products on the basis of the difference, whether they are different or not, and there are 3 panelists, 5 panelists, I'll just give this example. You see, here 3 panelists, they have been exposed with the 6 samples. In difference test, what is important if there are 2 products? So it is also important to serve that how in what order we serve. Is a product which is coded as A, another product which is coded as B. If you are offering A first, B second, then we can also, we do it multiple times. A first, B second. B first, A second. We can also offer AA in sequence. We can also offer BB in sequence. We can repeat. So that's how they are 6 different samples, 3 panelists, and the result outcome is there where they assessed different or same. And out of this is the summary of result, because we know that, or means the one who is testing is aware that what difference is there or the products are same. So in this response of the panelist, say for example, first panelist 5 correct, 1 incorrect, and so total 3 incorrect and 5 correct. Now, what to consider here? So 15 correct, this 15 times the product has been marked as different, and 3 times it has been indicated as the same. So what to consider out of it? Means this is where the statistics actually come, and statistically you have to interpret the result. How do we do that? For this purpose, for example, what confidence level in your result you want? Say for example, we want a 95% level of confidence. So total number of examination, you see here, total number of examinations was 6 into 3, 18. And out of 18, what there is this, there are tables available, statistical tables. They are used for it. If there are 13 correct, then 95% confidence. If there are 16 correct, then the 99.9%. Table, there are 2 different tables. They depend that what kind of response can be there. 1 tail or 2 tail. Say for example, pair comparison. Which is more sweet? The individual can answer only the one. A versus B, it is either A is more sweet or B. So that situation is called 1 tail. Like if are A or B different, so means A and B moving both direction, it is possible that they could be same or different. So this is 2 tail. So there are 2 different tables which are actually put in effect. There is a different table for 1 tail. There is another table which you can find in your textbooks that is for 2 tail samples. And that is how statistically you can validate the experiment or the result. Our experimental problem was, example was that 6 panelists or 3 panelists and 6 samples. So yes, 18 out total results were there, 15 are correct, then we can say if 15 are correct, so our at the 90% confidence level, we can say that our products are different. So there could be by chance a possibility of giving a correct judgment or so. So that is the bias or the, you can say the error can be minimized and statistically judged. So this is how do we interpret the sensory evaluation. Hope you would have understood this concept of the sensory. It is very important. Commercially, whenever we launch a new product, we change the ingredient, we replace some of the even raw material, we go by the validation of the product, or we validate the product on the sensory aspect. So that is the importance of the sensory evaluation for the food processing, food industry. Thank you.